In this video I'm going to disassemble this Tascam Porta 03 Mini Studio. Take all the knobs off, get the transport out, get access to all the printed circuit boards, anything you might need to do in order to repair yours. There will then follow some footage that I took while I was fixing this one, a repair report of what I needed to do to get this particular unit working. If all you want to do is change belts, or you only want to access the printed circuit board on the bottom, and if you don't need to remove the mixer, then you don't need to remove the knobs. Because I am removing the knobs for this video, I'm just going to take them off just now. So all these rubber ones for level, pan and so on, I'll just pull off. Notice that we have orange for the headphones, grey for the pan, green for the level, and red for the two mic trims. The two record function switches are mounted from the back, but we can take the faders off. The master fader here on the left is red. The input 1 and input 2 faders have a little orange decal on them. I wouldn't normally recommend removing these with pliers, but on another Porta 03 I tried to pry it up with a plastic tool like that and it actually snapped. So although there is a risk of marking the very ends with pliers, better that than break the fader altogether. If you're quite gentle then you shouldn't leave a mark. If you're really concerned about it, you could put masking tape or something over the teeth of the pliers to ensure that no mark was left on the plastic. It's a relatively light unit, so I'm not going to put down foam just for the sake of making this video. Quite can look good with my snazzy purple fabric in the background, but if you want it to be really safe, then put down something soft as you turn it over. These recesses beside the bits of red tape, 1, 2, 3, 4, are the ones that contain the screws that are holding the two halves of the plastic case together. I've only got 2 of them in at the moment. All of them look like this. I've got a wide ferrule because they're going into plastic. I can use a Phillips screwdriver with them. They're about 1 centimetre in length. From there, tip forward from the back, open out like that. I'm going to begin by focusing on getting the transport out of the case. You can see that the mechanical counter is on a separate printed circuit board from the transport, so let's unhook that for now. The erase head, all the cables from it, the erase head's this one on the left, are going into this socket here. I'm going to be really careful to grab the plastic, not the wires, so I don't put any strain on them. Grab that with pliers if you're worried about it. Then the record head is going up here to this header up here on the top left, and the red one is third along on this row. Sometimes you'll find that the header colour matches the connector, but here the connector's red and the header's white. So just remember that that one goes in there. There's no screw in this corner because it's a pass-through. There would be one there, but I seem to be 1 screw short. So we would have 1, 2, 3, 4 screws holding the transport into the plastic case. Screws are about 1 centimetre in length, wide ferrule, same size as screwdriver as before. You can see there's a ring connector going to earth on this little printed circuit board that has the power input and the counter on it. So that's how that's connecting to ground. These 3 is just the screw, nothing else to connect. To completely remove this, there's a socket for the motor and so on that's actually underneath this little daughter board that has the power input and the counter on it. So we're going to need to remove 2 screws from there. Just let that dangle off to one side, and that gives us access to this header and connector where the motor and various leaf switches for this transport are connected. That will then lift out. Apart from having this sort of stubby record playback head, I would say that this transport is a good 80-90% similar to the one that's in the Tascam 414. These 2 belts you can get in multi-packs. They cost about £3 or £4 on eBay. What's that, $5-6? If you look for cross-section, belt, assortment, Walkman, cassette player, you'll find the sort of thing that I mean. I'll put a link in the description to the video about the 414, refer to that if you need to know more about how to change the belts. The next thing I'm going to do is to separate the cables that electrically join these 2 printed circuit boards to the same circuit. Here we have a thick cable, 3 broad white cables and a black one, and beside that 3 cables in total, one of which is brown, the other 2 are white. We could, if we wish, completely separate this little daughter board So the power is coming in via that socket and going straight to the mixer, which is kind of unusual. Most units that I've seen that open up in two parts like that, the power goes to the bottom board, but that's how they've worked it on this one. So that counter and DC input jack is now separate. Got two cables ending in one connector, just off to the left if you're looking at it this way, or above if you're looking at it this way. This little daughter board, which maybe you can see it's an angle, we'll be removing that next. But if we grab hold of that, pull out, and then in this same bunch, got two more connectors. They're over here by these green variable inductors. There's a 2-pin one and a 3-pin one. The upper half and the lower half are now separate. Next we'll electrically disconnect this little daughter board here. So one folding cable is coming from a soldered in connection with a yellow header here. It's going into white connector and a white header there. This long grey cable goes up to the centre, in between these two headers where the record and playback heads were disconnected. Two more, one coming from a yellow header here to a white connector in the top right corner, and one coming from a yellow header on the daughter board down to a white connector here. The daughter board itself is connected to the plastic case with one screw in the centre. That will then lift out. To completely detach this printed circuit board from the plastic case below, we have 1, 2, 3 screws. Notice as I tip this from the front that we're slotting into 3 sort of holding pegs along the back, and underneath here there's a spring which, via this sort of star-shaped array of exposed contacts in that corner of the printed circuit board, is connecting to this shielding. That gives you any access you would need for recaps, placement of integrated circuits and so on in this half. Moving over to the upper half, just for contrast, I've put a little red Sharpie around all the screws. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We also need to remove another 2 on this metal plate with the 2 mic line input sockets on it. It looks like that might be a separate, but it's not. There are malleable exposed wires connecting these 2 sockets to the rest of the circuit board, so you need to remove all the screws at once. We now need to tip it this way because of the sockets at this end. And then that will lift out. Really the only thing we might want to remove from there is there's a little plastic cap on the Dolby switch, but we can get in there and clean that. I use Surfaceol 10, blow it out, compressed air, having agitated the various moving parts, pots, faders and so on, because we want the chemicals in the contact cleaner to evaporate on the board harmlessly, rather inside where they might interfere with the conductive plastics or how the conductive layer is stuck to the plastic inside these components. And then I follow up with a suitable lubricant because, again, the contact cleaner, the isopropyl and other chemicals are so strong in there that there is a risk that it will strip any built-in lubricant that was supplied by the manufacturer of these components. So it's important to put some lubricant in after that so that it doesn't get too scratchy. Sometimes if these are very dirty, then I would desolder them, pry them apart, get any grit or dirt off the brushes and contact surfaces inside them and reapply them. You can see on this unit that I've already replaced some of the capacitors. I also did some repair work at the base of these LEDs. That'll be in the upcoming footage. Finally, if you need to replace the door or do some mending of the plastic, there's a screw on this side. Got this little leaf spring. The pointed part should be pointing down the ways. Looks like we can remove this black plastic part as well, make it that much easier to take out the door. So we can get at that to clean it really well, or say these had snapped, could do some spin welding or use a 2-part glue to try and fix those. See the Repairing Plastics playlist available from my channel splash page. And I've got earlier to take out these record function selection switches. On reassembly, these need to be placed such that the yellow decal is at the top. What I usually do is place them in the bottom like that. And then when I'm ready to shut the case, make sure that these track selection switches in a downward position. Then when you shut the 2 halves of the case, these little plastic gubbins should slot over there and everything should work nicely. But make sure that moving these plastic parts is giving it a click from the switch before screwing the case shut again.